Hello Canada, welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Tagai. The media is in full meltdown. They are trying their best to get the focus off of their man, Mr. Mark Carney. All of this because the pedestal just got knocked out of their prop. This whole Carney's the savior of Canada, look how he controlled Trump narrative. If you're new, check out my previous episode. Now that we know, after many reporters finally forced him to tell the truth, that the conversation wasn't at all what he was letting on. In fact, the fact that he mentioned the 51st state pretty much tells you, and especially the way since Carney didn't bring it up that it was a cordial, like a laughable, haha, 51st state, that it was done in the typical Trump fashion. You're a weakling, you should be the 51st state, blah, blah, blah. But Carney, and with the help of the media, has been using this narrative, trying to take credit for others, which Carney's already tried to do. He saved Canada in the 2008 and 2009 crisis, which has been debunked. And how he saved Britain, which has been debunked. Again, previous episodes, all the proof is there. Now it was that the reason that there were no more tariffs and the reason that Trump backed away was because Carney had this strong conversation with Trump, which we know is a lie. Previous episodes, it was actually Danielle Smith fighting for Canada. Canada, not just Alberta. But now the media is trying everything to get your eye off of the reality that everything they've said to build up their want, their need, they need the Liberals to win. You have to understand this. Poilievre is fighting the largest, strongest arm of a socialist, fascist government, and that is propaganda. They all know Poilievre is going to defund them. Take their money away, have them rely on their own ethics and their own ability to tell the news and collect people who want and see the truth of what they're saying for them to make their own money. They've been spoiled for decades. And the last 10 years, they have been bought off with record amounts of money. Almost $2 billion a year. $600 million in advertising from this federal government and $1.3 billion in just straight out funding. That's your tax dollars to listen to this brainwash television. Now, of course, they've been doing this like literally the second it even came out, which is another answer to the reality of what Poilievre is saying. The first question asked, bringing this to light, was through Radio Canada, which Poilievre said he's not going to defund because he's aware that the radio is a necessity for rural and off-grid communities. But these guys gotta go. Now that this is all out, they're juggling balls trying to figure which way they're gonna get the crowd to look so they're not focused on the truth. And I'm only gonna take one little narrative that they're working on. And now this was done in the morning, and this was done in the evening, the two prime times. Are you ready? Get the ball.
I want to show you another incident that happened today with the media and with the Conservative campaign. We've talked about this throughout this election, the way they've been handling them, and I don't mean like sort of figuratively, I mean literally, like touching them. There was a moment today that we want to show you.
Handling them, like, touching them.
A reporter, our colleague Abigail Beeman with CTV, tried to ask Rob Batherson, a Conservative candidate in Halifax West. He's also a former president of the party. She tried to ask him a question. Just take a look at what happened.
Sorry, guys, we are just going to hold today.
Mr. Batherson, don't push me, Riley.
Was that a push? I didn't see no push. In fact, he's got his phone in his hand. If you watch careful, you'll see he's got his phone in his right hand.
Mr. Batherson, can we chat with you for a minute? Mr. Batherson?
Thank you very much.
Are you gesturing to us or to the party? Can we ask you a couple questions, Mr. Batherson, about the race in the Atlantic? Mr. Batherson, do you have any comments on Trump's new comments about Canada's sovereignty? Please don't push me, Riley.
Where's the push?
You're literally pushing me. Please don't push me.
Where's the
Please
push?
don't push me. Mr. Batherson, do you have a minute for the cameras, please? Mr. Batherson, do you have any comments on Trump's new comments about Canada's sovereignty?
Oh, and that's why they're walking away and don't want her there. Because they're not talking about the actual facts of what needs to be talked about. They're trying to push the narrative. They're trying to reinvigorate this idea of Carney. Now, most of Canada has caught on to this, which I'll show you a little bit later in the show. But they're not asking appropriate. If they were a real news outlet and they were really doing their job, they wouldn't be getting turned away. They wouldn't be like that, blocked off. They still get their questions. Poilievre and all the rest of the Conservatives don't kick them out of rallies. They're always allowed. You're allowed to be in the scrums and ask questions. But they're tired of the narrative. The lies, like this, like what CBC's doing right now.
Sovereignty or the new auto threat since we're standing in a car dealership?
Now skip the fact that Poilievre's already said he's answered the problem to all of the auto sector. In fact, he's warned the auto sector, which is what I warned about, again, previous episodes. If you elect these liberals, goodbye auto sector. The media doesn't necessarily want to tell you that. And earlier in this, the one guy even says, well, you even brought up the EVs. And I urge you to watch the clip. I post all the links below. They did bring it up. And they didn't actually talk about the legislation. They didn't say how bad it was going to be, how many jobs it was going to destroy. They didn't go into the true job of what journalists should be doing, which is exposing the Liberal Party for what they are. Listen, ready? Get the ball.
All right, Shachi, what do you make of that when you see that? I mean, Rob Batherson, when I first met him, he was John Hamm's communications director. He's been around a long time, knows this game, but whoever this Riley person is, like physically getting in the way of a female reporter to stop her from getting there. And it's not like this was a super aggressive stunt thing. It was, can we talk to the local candidate? What did you make of what we saw there?
Yeah, it's bad, it's disturbing, it's boneheaded, it's unnecessary. As a former reporter, I have experienced what it's like during the Harper era to have...
Oh, see how good they are. Now it's the Harper era. You got to make sure all Conservatives look bad. These people are professionals. Like I said, I studied this. These are the little things that you got to cue your ears to and you get used to it. After you train yourself listening and understanding, you say the same thing over and over again and people start to believe it.
Of the local candidates be told, don't talk to reporters, don't talk to the media, don't engage, don't show up to all candidates' events. That's one thing. There's that, and then there is actually physically restraining or physically touching a reporter trying to do their job. And what has been achieved?
Really? That's interesting. That is so interesting. Huh.
Yeah, after you guys threatened to sue. So that's why they got the 4 questions. Because the commission...
You're making that up. You're lying again.
When did the CBC get 4 questions?
Yesterday.
At one point, a cameraman who had already physically pushed Keane Bexley earlier did the same to my colleague Lincoln Jay. Since the cameraman was French, I approached him to ask his name and for which outlet he worked for.
This guy just pushed me, man. He's been pushing everybody. He's pushed me too. He just pushed me.
He didn't push you.
Yes,
He
he
passed
did.
by. That's
No, you had someone
He pushed. He pushed.
Valerie, come on.
Yesterday, weren't you?
Yeah, it's her.
What is this?
You know, you guys are so angry because once every 4 years you have some competitors. Once every 4 years you have some citizen journalists that you don't like, and you can't, even for one day for 4 years, you can't keep a lid on it.
You guys have been swearing at us and yelling at us, and you take no
time?
accountability for your unprofessional behavior. When we simply ask questions you guys don't like, that's it. And you know that the other guy was screaming at us first. You all saw it.
This is a room full of journalists, and you continue to get the story wrong. It's on video. We've been heckled, yelled at. We had to. They're throwing paper in the back. You all see it.
Another
None of you
useless
are
journalist.
reporting it. And you guys, there's no trust in the media. Look in the mirror.
My question.
Excuse-moi, est-ce que je peux savoir pour qui tu travailles? Est-ce que tu travailles pour Radio-Canada? Pourquoi tu te sens dans l'obligation de pousser les gens? He tried to hide under
Yeah,
his
I have your
beanie,
name.
but Lincoln and I kept pressing. Eventually,
Wow. See right there? Watch careful. He smacks the phone out of one of these independents' hands.
the cameraman slapped Lincoln's phone
Lincoln's phone's
out
down.
of his hands, sending it to the ground. Then Terry Gillen, Justin Trudeau's former lead media handler, now with Mark Carney, walked by.
Watch
For
this
context, this is the same guy who previously assaulted
that?
our media handler,
Watch your shoulder.
now with Mark Carney, walked by. For context, this is the same guy who previously assaulted by. For context, this is the same guy who previously assaulted our former colleague, Keane Bexley, physically escorting me out of the Liberal
Hands right
retreat
on her.
and cut my microphone at a press conference. As soon as David Menzies turned his camera towards him, Terry Gillen smacked David's phone out of his hands twice.
You touched me with that. I did not touch you. You're a liar. You're a goddamn liar.
You're a liar.
Oh yeah, nice try. You just nice try. Look what you're doing. Look at that. Police.
Monsieur Guillon, pourquoi vous avez autant d'agressivité? C'est pas la...
Say again? What was so violent about that video that this guy's making all this grief about? Interesting. This is legacy media.
I mean, the Bloc candidates, they do all kinds of interviews. The NDP candidates do interviews. At every stop with Mr. Carney, local candidates are made available for the Liberals. It's just the Conservatives, right?
It's just the Conservatives that don't do interviews and don't talk to the press. Interesting.
They didn't let media on their plane, promised the most open and transparent.
And by the way, the reason that they're not allowed on the plane, no press is allowed on the plane, is because Poilievre has got a daughter who suffers some disabilities. They take their kids with them everywhere they go. The last thing they need is radicals like these people on the plane. I wouldn't want them anywhere near my kids if they were young.
Campaign around, and here we go. That's kind of not what's happening, right?
Yes. James explained very well what goes into the thinking behind these events and how you manage and run a campaign, right? Every day you do have a core message, you have an announcement, you have something important that you want to cut through, and there are a million things that can happen that can derail that message or that can distract your audience from what you actually want to say to them.
Like what he's doing right now. Because guess what? Ready? Get your eyes off of Carney. Go get the ball.
However, at the same time, in this case, you had Abigail asking a very legitimate question that was like...
Was that a legitimate question? Does that really pertain to the problems in Canada right now?
On topic. So it is illogical to not want to answer those questions, and it feeds into this whole narrative that the Conservative Party, I think, created for itself by not letting reporters follow them, by limiting the number of questions, by being... Okay. Now,
I rewound this a little wee bit because I wanted you to hear how CBC voters, what they believe. Listen to this guy. Listen to these two guys, and they'll tell you straight off, by their answers, their belief of Carney, what CBC and CTV and all the rest of these crappy propaganda machines have filled their heads full of.
Next year, it's going to say, oh, we don't have a deficit. The deficit is lower now.
You think?
It's going to lower the deficit.
I'm not worried about the debt, okay? Because the growth of the country is there. The ability of Canada to create, build, the capitalism in Canada is very strong.
Is it? Everything he just said is completely misinformed. Every bit of it. And the guy before that, has he even read the budget, the platform budget of the Liberals? Hello? $250 billion more in debt in the next 4 years? Hello? Oh, because you watch propaganda television. You're not getting the truth. And now there's going to be a lot of people that go, well, the Rebels right wing. Are you aware that back in the day, Ezra worked for Sun? Sun was trying to get the Harper government to give them the CRTC accreditation so they could be part of the mainstream. Kind of like what Fox did down in the States. So that at least you were getting two sides of the story. Some reality between both of them so a person could negotiate between the bullshit of all the different media. Harper didn't give it to him. Harper's no fan of Rebel. Most politicians who necessarily lie or try to control narratives don't like real journalists. So the whole idea of a right wing is thrown right out the door. This is why I'm a fan of Rebel News. This is why I promote them lots. And by the end of this, I'm going to show you the most important question that was asked came from a Rebel reporter at one of the scrums. It's the most uniting question Canada needs resolved. And it was finally asked, and only one person got it because of the way mainstream controls, as well as the Liberal Party controls everything and anything that gets pushed through the CRTC, which is what the masses get to see. Now, this is all in kind of French where it takes off from here. But in other words, she's not allowed.
Je sais pas, on peut pas interviewer personne. Je suis désolée. Mot d'ordre de qui? Est-ce que je peux savoir?
Un événement privé. Fait qu'on demanderait s'il vous plaît
de cet ordre-là? Est-ce que c'est parce que mais moi, dans le fond, ça viendrait juste de vous, ça pourrait être arbitraire.
Ben, moi, c'est l'ordre là, qu'on a reçu. Fait que je demanderais s'il vous plaît de partir.
Est-ce que je peux savoir votre nom?
Non, je ne sais pas savoir mon nom.
Ben oui, parce que vous me donnez un ordre et vous me dites qu'il faut que je...
Nice people. Just because they're liberal doesn't mean they're not nice. They were giving her straight out answers. She was asking questions and trying to say like, you are aware of this, just out of questions to see what their knowledge was. Like a reporter should do. Like a journalist should do. Nope. No way. This girl refuses to show her badge, says she's security. I don't think so, because she would have shown her badge and she would know the rules. The rules say if you say you're working and you're in law enforcement, you have to show your badge. She's not showing her badge. And this goes on. And then they decide, well, now we're going to call the police on you. Now we're going to call the police on you. And now the police come. And this full-fledged lib on the right, this girl, she starts, like, she's an idiot. She starts treating them like children. Alexa knows more about the laws than this police officer does. She's just trying to get... I want to know who. I want to know who. She's saying, I'll cooperate. They're saying, nope, you have to leave. I'll go talk to the security company. They'll explain. She says, I tried. I don't know if this is arbitrary. Like, who's kicking me out? It's private. You're no longer welcome here. We're asking you to leave. We're asking politely. We're acting in good faith. What's good faith? I don't understand what like that's good faith. Clearly, at the leaders' debate, he invited people, independent media, to cover Mr. Carney's events. He himself invited the independent media to come here and cover it, so I sent a request. You're no longer welcome here. They ended the scrum because they were afraid Carney was going to be forced to ask real questions after the English leaders' debate. Carney only said that in front of the cameras because he knew CBC and CTV and all the rest of this propaganda would reclip that saying, oh, no, he talks to independent media. Oh, no, he talks to independent. He talks to everybody. It's just the conservatives. And now this is what you don't see. This is what CBC and the rest of them won't show you. Since day one. In fact, for 10 years since Trudeau first took power and the Liberals became this unbelievably bricked up fascist government, zero transparency, hasn't let anybody ask any questions unless they're from people they know, either went to school with or were in their wedding party or part of their paycheck and payroll. They know they're going to get softball questions. I mean, when a reporter sits down and has a one-on-one and says, what about the budget? And Trudeau, well, the budget will balance itself. And that's it. There's no follow-ups. I'm sorry. You're not a real journalist anymore. And this is what... So here's the reality. And this, like I said, has been going on since Trudeau. They refuse to talk to real journalists because they can't answer real questions without exposing themselves of the farce fascist people they are. They need to control the narrative. Previous episode. This is what they do. Now, later in the day, during another prime time, they do the same thing all over again. The same host. This time he's got different pundits. Like this guy, Fife. Waste of skin. Listen to this guy. What unbelievable.
Just the way they were treated, they're put into these basically cages, and they're not allowed to go out and talk to the people who are showing up at rallies, and they always have a minder there to make sure that they're not allowed out. I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous. And the fact of the matter is that that the people in these rallies are quite fine to talk to reporters. There's not a problem with that.
That's what I just said. Funny, hey? Propaganda. This is how it works. They try to talk like they try to talk like I'm talking, like a real independent would trying to get the story out. Except I'm showing you the truth, whereas he is blatantly, and watching this episode proves it, lying to you.
That. It's the controlling tactics of Mr. Poilievre and his team. And let's remember Jenny Byrne, who's the campaign manager, when they refused to we're not going to let reporters have on a campaign plane.
Now, the campaign plane that he's referring to, this is an insult to any dignity that this man has. Because if he was any type of a journalist, he would know that Anita and Pierre have a disabled child. Plus, they carry both their kids with them everywhere they go. Would you, as a parent of young children, allow these goofballs into your plane? Or even crazier, just call me a parent, because I am. Luckily, my kids are grown up and left home. But when my kids were young, if I was putting in the hours and had to have my kids with me, I think I would want to have a little bit of private time with my family. Totally ignored. Completely ignored. In fact, they're using propaganda and lies against the reality of good parenting. Instead of saying the truth, Well, I mean, think about it. The guys, they're 18, 20-hour days. They're flying and driving nonstop. They got their young children with them. They're tag teaming between the two parents in order to spend some quality time with their kids, especially one who's special needs and needs that extra bit of time. No, they don't say that. Instead, they're insulting Pierre and Anita. This is absolute crap.
This was going to be the most transparent election in Canadian history. Well, it is with the other parties, but it certainly isn't with the Conservatives.
It is with the other parties.
Yeah, I mean, this looks pretty
Really? I'll be damned. Do you remember this?
You guys with us? You've been advised you have to leave?
By nobody who's identifying themselves. They're just a random dude came up and said that this fellow as well. We're just if we have to leave, I'm happy to leave. But nobody from whoever's booked this has told us that they're actually an authority figure. Just people that I think don't like us. So.
Do you see that? A real journalist once again. Who's asking? We need it from the top. It can't be the opinion of one person. They need to know. They want to know. They're trying to do their job.
Okay, you are trespassing, so you need to leave the property.
Okay. All right.
Do you want to come out this way so you don't walk in front of all of them?
Oh, we don't want you walking out in front of everybody. We don't want anybody seeing kicking out journalists.
I don't, sure, yeah.
Okay. No problem.
Happy to, yep.
Kean, such a
okay.
What's your position in the campaign? No. Why am I time to go?
Sorry, they're going to come through here.
And this is Counter Signal, by the way. Another great outfit, which now I think he's still got Counter Signal, but he also tags team onto Juno. Another fabulous outlet. Mark all these names down. I put all the links in too. So you guys will have links to get real news. Keep watching. It's not just him they kicked out.
Hi, George. Have you stolen anything lately?
Oh, yes, that's right. The porch pirate. He shouldn't even be running. But there he is, still in the Liberal Party. Where's mainstream? Why aren't they doing their job? That's a real journalist, people.
Back this way?
Oh,
Okay, sorry,
can't
we're
go
actually
that door either. We don't want people seeing. See the lineup of journalists? Look at them.
This way, sir.
Whoa. No.
This is the weirdest I've ever been treated.
If you want to keep filming, you're welcome to, but you're going to have to be off the community property.
We'll have to pick up our car, and is that okay?
Where is it?
It's just in the parking lot. We can drive, but thank you. Oh, sure, yeah. So the entire community center has trespassed us, or was it the campaign?
It's the private.
Now that guy, right there, he's a fully accredited journalist in the province of Alberta. This is all going down in Edmonton. He goes to every presser. He's a full-fledged booted out. He doesn't belong to Counter Signal. He doesn't belong to Juno. He doesn't belong to Rebel. He's booted out.
Yeah, private event.
Okay, but they haven't booked this playground.
No, but it is part of the property, so we're gonna get you to be off the property.
Okay.
They don't even want them talking to the supporters, the people going in. That's how controlling a fascist government is. Because, oh my God, you would not want a real journalist talking to a citizen, asking good questions of them, and maybe giving them hints of evidential, true proof that is contrary to the narrative on why they're even there. Oh, no. We don't want, we don't want to be able to talk between each other. We don't want that. You have to control every aspect.
You're free to build from there, but...
Sure, yeah. Well, thanks for being so professional about this. It's strange treatment from someone who wants to be the Prime Minister of this country.
Where's your group?
Just right up ahead here.
Now, he ends up joining 4 or 5 other journalists. They're all kicked out. And on different ones, like in Winnipeg and some others, there was 15 of them that were kicked out. All different outlets kicked out, all independents. So what the hell is CBC talking about? And then Fife goes on.
Well, yeah, I mean, this looks pretty transparent, but I don't think it's transparency. I mean, it feels to me that this doesn't help a campaign because you just don't get the fuller coverage of their candidates. You don't get the fuller coverage of their platform, their ideas.
Well, it's anti-democratic as well. Let's face it. Election campaigns are an opportunity to test the leadership, to talk to people who show up at these rallies. What are their concerns? Our job as reporters is to talk to all these people and reflect that in our reporting. And they simply do not want that. They want to control the message so much that it just seems so self-defeating.
Yeah, Mia, what do you think on this?
Right. So they want to control the message. They want to control the message. Right.
I appreciate your presence here today. Before I begin, let me just say that thank you very much. I'm being heckled here by thank you very much for your congratulations. Thank you very much for your questions. I'm going to begin my remarks now.
But will you take some questions afterwards? That's usually
Justin Trudeau is out of touch and Canadians are out of money. The cost of government is driving up the cost of living. $500 billion of inflationary deficits have bid up the cost of the goods we buy and the interest that Canadians pay.
Now, I want to hear him. And I know he's going to take questions after this. Who's pushing the narrative?
The cost for workers and businesses to produce the goods that we buy. On top of that, Trudeau proposes yet more spending to bid up costs even further.
Some reporters today.
This was a couple years ago. And there were some bills that were being passed that were really important to Canadians that Poilievre wanted to get out there. But the media didn't want the people to know. No. Instead, they're pushing a narrative.
The more he spends, the more things cost. It is just inflation. Their homes and to buy a home in the very first place. The reason that look, yeah. So I mean, we have basically a liberal heckler who snuck in here today.
He's a liberal heckler. This is what the conservatives, all conservatives, have to put up with. You can't. They don't want people to know. Legacy's job is to protect their paycheck and the party that pays them the most. And what we've seen in this is that in the beginning, first of all, a lot of the caucus, a lot of the MPs were from the media, the paid media. They were all friends. They were in wedding parties. They went to school together. They get together afterwards into parties. They talk all the time on what's going to go on the news. It's just you don't know it because you don't see it. Instead, you get the dun 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 dun. This is the news, prime time. This is the news. No, it's not. This is propaganda. This is propaganda.
On this, it was interesting, like no debates, very few interviews, though I did notice some of the candidates back in my home province, they did CBC debates.
I thought he said no debates. And they even did CBC debates. What the hell is he talking about?
I don't know if Central Campaign knew about that, but they have.
And now Central Campaign didn't know about that? Like, where it is these people, and you know what they'll say is, oh, well, it's an informant. It's an inside informant. Lies. It's all lies. The Conservative Party themselves question them and say, I'm still waiting. Who are you talking about? I've talked to every single person. We talk. Who are you talking about? Oh, well, it's we don't want to give their name away. Lies. This is propaganda.
I mean, it's not new that Conservative candidates are not doing debates. We've seen this in multiple elections before, and clearly there's some message to them that they shouldn't do it.
Okay. I'm gonna scroll ahead a little bit here. Try this again.
So JD, how is this playing out in places like Quebec? I've heard Chantal Hébert talk about how someone like Gérard Deltel could be an excellent spokesperson for the Conservatives in Quebec, but just kind of low profile, not doing a lot of stuff.
Low profile,
everything
not
is
doing
about
stuff.
the leader, and it all lives and dies with him.
Well, he's been disappeared from the map. I'm wondering if he's still running. We haven't heard from him since the election campaign started.
What?
It's a bit silly because you're running for office.
Are you sure? Really? Huh.
Des projets de ressources naturelles qui permettent de l'échange de l'Ouest à l'Est et à l'inverse, au lieu de dépendre des Américains pour tout.
On va commencer en parlant de la guerre tarifaire, M. Deltel. Dans un nouveau sondage léger qui a été publié hier, il y a 35% des répondants qui ont cité Donald Trump et également les États-Unis comme facteurs qui vont influencer leur choix pour le 28 avril, suivi de l'inflation et des soins de santé autour de 22% dans ces cas-là. Comment vous trouvez la gestion de la guerre tarifaire avec les États-Unis par le gouvernement sortant de M. Carney?
Écoutez, ça touche tous les Canadiens.
Holy cow!
C'est pas parce que justement on dit que
He's
oui,
even
faut
talking! Oh my God! CBC, you're so full of yourself. But they're talking to the English crowd, the English watching viewers who don't watch the French parts. Here he is in his province talking about who? Pierre Poilievre, debating it with a whole bunch of different members of different parties. What the hell are you guys talking? Are you guys all on crack at CBC? Are you serious? Really?
But, you know, here we are. You know, the purity test and the loyalty test got applied. And then the not dealing with the media thing. And look, I know people say this is all, you're making it about inside baseball. They're losing with boomers and people over 50. Guess who watches shows like this at critical mass? It's boomers and people over 50, of which I am one. So I mean, it seems like you're cutting off an audience that you need.
Anytime you are taking away...
Really? Now do you understand why we have so many boomers that are voting liberal? Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Show your boomers this. I don't know any boomers that are voting liberal. I know a lot of them. They're not voting liberal. But guess what? Where I come from, where I spend most of my time during the summers, there's not a whole heck of a lot of liberals. In fact, I think I only know 2. But when you have to deal with people like this and the media doesn't show you, pay attention to the right-hand side of the screen. Watch the pushing start. Here we go. Cameraman's having a hard time. Oh, got pushed forward. Got pushed forward. Now push to the side. Careful, look at the right-hand side of the screen. Pushed again. Who's pushing? Oh, the guy in blue. Well, who's this loser? Look at him. Look at him. Oh, CBC, McGregor. Oh, pushing. CBC show you this? Does CBC show you this? Nope. Nope. They're too busy spreading fear, hate, and division. Are you ready? Are you ready? Go get the ball. And that's why you get things like this that happen. Go home, CBC. You wonder why nobody likes you? Because the digital age has exposed you for what you are. It's not hard when you have access to information, which is what this government is trying to stop us from having. They have censored us in every which way they can. Jagmeet Singh helped them to do this and wants more of it because he's afraid, just like the Liberals, that the truth will get out there. The most important question, the singular most important question that was asked at the debates was asked by an independent reporter who works for Rebel News. This is the question that could have brought Canada together when the truth can come out. But it won't, because mainstream wants fear, hate, and division. They feed off it. They want every single culture and creed, religion and race at each other's throats by using misinformation. And I'm going to prove it to you.
Hello, Mr. Singh. Drea Humphrey with Rebel News. Your party takes great pride in standing against hate such as white supremacy, Islamophobia, and all.
Sorry, I didn't get your outlet.
Drea Humphrey with Rebel News.
Okay.
Your party.
You know where I'm going to go with this, all right?
Can I speak?
Yeah, you can. I'm just going to say you know where I'm going to go with it, though.
I asked him during the Easter season about the rise and ongoing acts of hate against Christian places of worship since sensational claims that the remains of Indigenous children had been discovered in unmarked graves swept the nation in 2021.
These claims have been disproven by bands that excavated and remain unproven by those that have not. Will you condemn the rise in acts of hate against Christians today and explain what your party will do moving forward to keep Christians safe from hate in Canada?
Now, did you see this on mainstream? Ask your friends. Ask all of the people you know that watch all of these crappy propaganda mainstream if they actually saw this part of the scrum. They didn't air it. There's a reason. They want Canada divided. They want to make sure they get put into law, funding, so they can keep their propaganda going. This is why we're living in the fascist world we're in. This is why that report, again, previous episodes of Dystopia, is upon us. This is why we're here. We're divided because of lies. It's not me lying. It's not her lying. It's CBC in particular and all the other media that takes money from the government. They lie. Listen to the answer.
Again, thank you, but I'm not going to respond to an organization that promotes misinformation and disinformation like Rebel News. So no, I'm not going to respond to your question.
Shame.
Really? Interesting.
When I first saw the story break, I had been away on retreat. And so I had my phone off and I wasn't going on the internet. When I turned my phone on, it exploded with texts and emails, and then I read this headline, and the headline used the word a mass grave, that a mass grave had been discovered at the site of a former residential school. Well, you can imagine. I think you're aware, maybe some of your audience would not be aware, that I have Indigenous heritage. My grandmother, who is Cree Indian, she spent 12 years in a residential school. She received her entire education in that system, along with all of her siblings. So this is not something that I am unfamiliar with. This is something that hits very close to home for me. When I saw that headline, my heart just sank. And as I continued to read the story, I said, wait a minute, what do you mean you've discovered a mass grave? It was sort of like the mass grave was the title, and then there started to be these other peculiarities to the way that they were describing what happened, that there was the use of ground penetrating radar,
right,
and the remains were found, but nothing had been dug up. And as I read through, I said, this doesn't sound like this has confirmed. This sounds like we are afraid that this might be what's here. So my next logical conclusion was, well, then I guess we're going to need to, as carefully and respectfully as possible, excavate the site so that if there are, in fact, bodies, remains of children that are just heaped up in some grave, that we can do whatever it takes to make sure that they have been properly dealt with, but then also start asking some questions. What the heck happened here?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not what ever came to pass. It seemed as though this statement was going to suffice to send the entire country into a tailspin of remorse and hatred and vitriol and anger that it left my head spinning. I couldn't believe what was happening. And many people know about my own personal cultural background and my family's association with residential schools. Now I'm a Catholic priest, and the Catholics were enemy number one. The federal government sure made that easy to identify quickly. And
now do you get it? Is it sinking in? How do you heal? How could you ever try to put pieces together when the government itself, protected by propaganda, is using lies, misinformation to create fear, hate, and division? This affected not only the Indigenous, it affected every single Canadian. This went viral around the world. It completely discredited and disgraced Canada and Canadians. Now, I agree with them 100%. This doesn't absolve what happened. There's some nasty shit that has to come out. There needs to be reconciliation. But how can you reconcile on a pile built of lies? Instead of digging, they're adding more lies on top of it. The Liberals are still hiding documents that they're fighting for. But oh no, we don't want to expose his dad, Trudeau Sr. We don't want to expose all of the other politicians that were involved. No. We don't want to actually find the people who are responsible, because then we could start to reconcile. And after the demolition that this Trudeau government did to the Aboriginals, to the Natives, to the Indigenous, he needed something in order to divide them, because in remote areas, guess what's the only news they get? Propaganda. Controlled by him and like the people I just showed you. I'm going to move ahead. I urge you to watch this entire interview. This man is remarkable. Listen carefully.
the historic fact that 215 children were murdered and thrown into a pit. Okay, that was the way the initial story was spun and was put out. Our bishops never apologized for that. And what we seem as a culture, in general, incapable of doing now, are making distinctions. There are things to apologize for on behalf of the institution of the Catholic Church with regard to residential school.
Hear, hear.
That is a fact. Children died in the residential school. That is a fact.
Hear, hear.
There are burial sites at residential school property. That is a fact.
Hear, hear.
You cannot weave together from out of those facts an imaginary scenario where priests and nuns are responsible for the execution of children who they have tried to systematically hide their deaths and bury them unceremoniously. If that's what you're trying to suggest has happened, and that is what needs to be apologized for, that is insane. That can't be apologized for because that's not what's happened. And if you take those other three categories that I just said were facts and try and weave a different story from out of them, then you are going to create a bigger falsehood. And when you've created a bigger falsehood and it inevitably unravels, it undermines everything that can be apologized for. So now we're experiencing a reversion where people who might say, let's say Catholics sitting in the pews, who felt forced into feeling ashamed under false pretenses, that now they just roll their eyes at the thought that the Catholic Church has to do anything about Indigenous reconciliation because it's all just baloney. That's not true. It isn't just baloney. There are things that we can and must be doing. But if you give any credence to the falsehood, you are going to undermine the good that you have been doing and could be doing. And that's the tightrope that I think continues to be walked.
I urge you to watch this entire interview. Like I always post everything in my description. That was the most important question that needed to be put forward. Because it's the largest dividing factor in our entire country right now. And disgrace placed upon us through lies, vitriol, and just pure naivety and ignorance from the Liberal Party and the propaganda media. How can you even have a democracy if everything you're told is lies and you actually have people out there that believe it? Well, why do they believe it? Well, because I saw it on the news. This is the reality. This is truth. Jagmeet is not a man by any means. He has no courage at all. I have words for him that I could use, but I'll refrain. He had a chance. He actually had a... My God, call it God, the Creator, gave him that chance right there at the scrum. Gave him a second chance for all the evils that he's done for the last 5 years propping up this government. And he threw it away. He literally threw it away. I hope he does lose his seat. It's not very often in someone's life where they get that type of a second chance publicly. Like, to admit their wrongs and correct it to the masses that it affected. He can go home after all of this, cry in his bed, and maybe tell a few people how he was wrong about this, and it's irrelevant. He blew his chance. Trudeau is running for the hills. He'll never answer for it. Look at all the lies. Since day one, the lies. The chauvinistic masculinity, ignorance, toxic, like everything. How he treated women, everything that the media portrays him to be this glorified leader for. It's all lies. Propaganda media people. Here they are. Once again, covering for the Liberal Party. Are you ready? Are you ready? Watch independent media. Like, share, and describe. Don't fetch the ball. I hope you enjoyed the episode. You've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Tagai. Stay informed.